Now, I'd like to turn to our next guest for more on what the slowdown really means. We have Colonel in the Reserves, Miri, a senior fellow at the International Institute for Counterterrorism at Reichman University. You know, these numbers show a huge drop in Iranian missile launchers from 90, on day one to around 20 a day. How do you explain this? Is it really because Israel and the U.S. have destroyed launchers, or do you think Iran is deliberately conserving its arsenal?
It's both, but I think it's much more about our military prowess. So first, I should really say Shabbat Shalom to everybody. I'm sitting here right now listening to those numbers. And Natasha, what we're talking about is what it means, absolute air superiority. This is not an Israeli event. This is a joint U.S.-Israeli event. And what happened on Saturday is that Israel then was in big salvo. We were doing more sorties, I think, even in the United States at the beginning. But what we're seeing is that enormous strength of the United States as they up their game. They're doing more and more attacks. They were very focused on naval different challenges inside the Persian Gulf, things that Israel is not looking at as much. But that joint combination is what we're seeing in the lowering of the number of launches, launchers, and the facility to be able to make more missiles. So this is definitely a trend, and it certainly should continue.
You know, the IDF says that it's taken out about 60% of Iran's ballistic missile launchers. How significant is that militarily, and how much capability do you think that Iran still has left?
So one of the things with statistics is the good side and the bad side. That means that they still have 40%. The issue here is also about the salvos, meaning they cannot at the moment launch with a lot of launchers simultaneously, because when they do it with a lot of launchers simultaneously, that usually means that they'll be able to get through all of our different defenses. There's a statistic there. We manage to stop 95%. If they send a lot at once, it ups their statistic. But the other side of that also is that as it slowly goes down, what we're going to be seeing is single rockets, which will not be a threat in the way that they are right now. It won't be as scary. But I hate to say it, it'll be, I don't think ever any war is being annoying, but it means that they could continue what is disrupting Israeli life. It still disrupts the airport. We're not back to normal. And that they continue to do for a while if they are holding their capability and they're only going to be firing them in. We may intercept them, but there'll still be a siren, still be the alert, still be the threat that will make that, will still impact the airport.
You know, with even fewer missiles being fired, we're still seeing sirens go off in Israel. What does this phase of the war look like for civilians here? And what should those watching understand about the situation? Because obviously, if we're going to kind of see a sustained, stabilized number of attacks, but there's still daily attacks, what does that ultimately mean for how this country is supposed to function, schools opening, et cetera?
I'm not the person to ask about that, because I really wouldn't want to be the one who would have to decide right now, Natasha, that they're going back to school. First of all, you do it in stages. And right now what they're talking about is that schools will be remote learning. That's good news and bad news. You know, not every single kid inside Israel, too many percentages don't have the access in remote learning, so that's really going to be a challenge. You know, there are people who sit in their home and each kid has a computer and they can do remote learning. But if there's anything that we learned, even from Corona, let alone from the last 2.5 years, is that that's not the best situation to be in. But I need to remind our viewers an additional point that Ariel was also talking about before. We're also fighting, as you know, Natasha, up north against Hezbollah. Hezbollah chose to join in. And what's happening right now in Israel is that there's a gap. The Iranian missiles, heavy duty, 1.5 tons, very scary. Doesn't matter cluster, not cluster, but we have 5, 7, 9 minutes to get into place. What's happening right now with Hezbollah having joined in is that up north has yet again become that kind of battlefront where they're not going to be able to leave their houses at all. We in the center have 5 to 7 minutes. That makes me feel so good right now. Up north, they're back to that situation of 15 seconds, 25 seconds, and that means you can't open stores, you can't open schools, you can't do that until that is settled.
All right, Miri, I'd like to thank you so much for joining us as per usual.